want to touch upon, you mentioned supply shock, you mentioned Mike Novogratz a few times, which obviously leads me to the whole discussion on Ethereum versus Bitcoin. We tend to focus a lot on Bitcoin when we talk about the bull market, what's the new all-time high and all that stuff. It's all with the Bitcoin lens. But arguably, we will start to see the Ethereum or ETH protocol start flippening. People talk about the flippening of happening between Ethereum and Bitcoin. Do you think that will happen? Will that happen in this market cycle? If not, will it ever happen? What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic for sure to discuss. Like it would change a lot of the, like you said, the lens that we look at crypto through, or the cycles through, because Bitcoin has been, the top dog for so long. It's so tied to the cycles, like, and it'd be interesting, like if we do see at some point an Ethereum flip Bitcoin, how that would affect the kind of the overall cycle and everything. But yeah, I personally would say for sure it's possible. It's definitely something that's possible. I mean, market cap wise, there's still a sizable gap between them, but it's not like a crazy gap at this point. We saw Ethereum have a huge run up to 4,000 there. Like that was a very fast move for Ethereum. The one thing worth noting about Ethereum is you actually had the Ethereum Foundation. A lot of people don't know this, but my understanding is they dumped a huge percentage of coins actually at the top. So they did, and actually I believe they did the same thing in 2017, is they actually dumped a significant amount of Ethereum near the top. So yeah, I mean, they can
pushing
take
down the price, basically pushing down the price.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just they see a crazy move, and it's an opportunity for them to take some profits themselves. Right. I mean, they're an entity that, like, it's not like they sold their whole position, but they did sell a meaningful amount, right? Which is good. I mean, in some ways, it gives them a lot of money to continue to expand the project. But yeah, it's worth noting that you have like I guess with Ethereum, you have a foundation that has the most insights, I guess you could say, on the price and the project. And when they see a huge move up, they have a lot of Ethereum they can sell. Right. Whereas you don't really have that. I mean, Bitcoin, you have that in other ways, but it's just a little different. Right. So what I would say with the flipping though is, yeah, I would say, I mean, it's just my thoughts. Like it's just my one person's opinion, but I would say we don't see a flipping this cycle, in my opinion. There's a possibility at some point in the cycle we get close to it. The EIP 1559 is coming out pretty quick here, and it's hard to say like exactly how that's going to impact the supply of Ethereum and how that's going to reflect in the price movements. We could see that. I'll say a few things with Ethereum. So I look at the on-chain data for Ethereum as well. I do hold Ethereum and I do follow it. So we saw a 100% increase in the amount of Ethereum that are locked up in smart contracts over the last year. So it was exactly 100%. Like we saw it was around 4.5% all the way up to 25%, roughly speaking, of the whole Ethereum circulating supply was not locked up, but in smart contracts. So in some way being used in the network in a way that it may cause it to less likely be put back in a circulating supply. So we're seeing adoption. We're seeing a lot of things on that front with Ethereum. We're seeing a lot of Ethereum right now actually being locked up into the EIP 1559 a lot of ETH2, I should say. Yeah, exactly. A lot of validators. Yeah. So there's a huge amount of validators. I think 160,000 validators last time I checked was showing. Yeah. And to be a validator, you need to have 32 ETH, right? So you can work out the math on that. I worked out the math. It was, I can't think off the top of my head, but the amount of percent, but it's a meaningful percent that are locked up in those they can't be taken out. Like they literally can't be moved. They're getting the high staking yield. They've committed but they're waiting for ETH2 to launch. So there's a percentage of the supply, a meaningful percent that's locked up in these validator contracts, over 160,000 of them. And then you have the increasing amount going to smart contracts. And then you have the EIP 1559 coming out. So you have a lot of factors also to do with the supply shock for ETH. So you could make a very strong case for Bitcoin and ETH that there's different reasons why there'll be these supply shocks. True. And so that's why, flipping is in the cards, because with any kind of a supply shock, you can see crazy movements in the price. And but yeah, I would still say my prediction for this cycle is we don't see it. I think next cycle it's definitely possible. It does depend though on I'll say this: if ETH ends up being the 100% dominant long-term platform, I think it will flip Bitcoin at some point in the future.
Mm,
But I don't think it's guaranteed yet that that Ethereum will be the winner of this category. I think that they're the highest probability, probably because of network effects and because of
mm,
adoption.
right.
At this point, I would say they are the leader and they are the most likely candidate to win this category of Web3. But
Mm,
there are some again, like meaningful players that are coming up. I would say like a Polkadot and a Solana is
mm,
the two main ones that I'm looking at. Other people would say Cardano as well, but I'm looking at
right.
mainly Solana and Polkadot for different reasons. Those two uh, could potentially take some of the shine of Ethereum,
Mm,
which could reduce the likelihood of a flippening. So if ETH just continues to dominate this category and all these up and comers, like the thing about the Web3 and the platform is there's so many players in this category. There's so much
yeah.
competition
Yeah.
compared to Bitcoin, which really doesn't have any competition. It might ultimately be a category that has a lower market cap as a category, and there might be like less I guess money in this theme of store value versus like the the economy of value that gets it's like the Web3 is a huge deal, like whatever platform wins this, but there could be multiple winners and that could cause like a dilution of the ultimate winner, right? We're already seeing that. We're already
Mm,
seeing like, I mean, if it wasn't for Polkadot, Solana, Cardano, and like a
mm,
bunch of other players, if there was just ETH in this category, I mean, its market
mm,
cap would be a lot higher.
yeah.
And it would
Exactly.
actually be, you could add them up and it would be, probably getting pretty close to Bitcoin already. So
Exactly.
the long answer to your question, sorry, I tend to have long answers, but yeah, it's I would say I don't see a flipping happening this cycle. I
Mm,
definitely see a possibility in the future, depending on how the platform wars, you could say, play out.
mm,
And if ETH can kind of stay on top, because there are some significant up and comers, I would say.
mm. Yeah, I
What's your
think.
opinion? What do you think about the flippening? Like, what's your take on it?
Yeah. So full disclosure, I'm super big on Ethereum. I think they're doing a fantastic job building along the way. They People criticize Ethereum for launching something and then fixing it on the way, but I really prefer that. Also coming from a programming perspective, I've built so many different projects and platforms, and iterating along the way is just the winning strategy, if you ask me. And that's what Ethereum has taken compared to, for example, Cardano, who wants the perfect solution from an academic standpoint and all these different papers and all that stuff before they launch anything. And the big question for me, though, in terms of Ethereum, whether that will win compared to other smart contracts platforms, is whether these. So first of all, the upgrades to Ethereum, will they continue to be postponed, which they have in the past for sure. EIP 1559 is coming up. How will that affect the price of Ethereum? A big joker here is all the different layer 2 or optimistic rollups, CK rollups, kind of implementations. Polygon is a project that I invested in also, and has been exploding like crazy. So yeah, my take is that I'm a fan of Ethereum. I still hold Polkadot. I have a little bit of Solana. I have a little bit of Cardano just to hedge, just in case that will explode and overtake Ethereum. But I am pretty big on Ethereum. That's my main bet. And just looking on the market cap, that's sort of a simple analysis people can do when you look at, where are people building stuff. I mean, looking at the coin market cap and the top, let's say 20 coins, you have Ethereum number two. I'm looking at it right now. Ethereum number two, Tether, which is an ERC20 token, is number three. Binance Coin is number four, which is also an ERC20 token. You have USDC that we talked about, number eight. You have Uniswap, the biggest DEX in the world, number 11, or the Uni token. You have Polygon that I just mentioned, or Matic as they call it, number 17. So when I just look at, comparing it to Cardano, Solana, etc., Ethereum just seems to have a way be way ahead of the other projects. Now that doesn't mean, of course, in tech, things change very fast, especially in crypto and blockchain. That doesn't mean that Polkadot can launch and overtake Ethereum. I think Polkadot personally that is the strongest contender to Ethereum. But Polkadot to me is a little bit like Ethereum was in 2017. It's a bet. it could go completely wild, and it could go nowhere, like EOS, which we also talked about off air. So my personal portfolio has a little bit of Polkadot, and if people are, in between, what they don't think Ethereum is going to overtake everyone, Polkadot might be a smart move to hold a little portion of.
Yeah, I think that's a smart take, because like yeah, like when I have quite a bit of like, yeah, your background definitely makes you probably one of the, like your background helps you to understand like this sort of a
Mhm.
category of investing for sure. And like you
Mhm.
said, like just seeing the difference between iterating as you go, and just yeah, just basically taking forever to launch anything, and trying to
Mhm.
perfect everything. Like it's a big difference. And um,
Exactly.
like Ethereum is by far the leader, and does have the adoption, and does have like all the major projects building on it at this point.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a clear leader. It's just, yeah, like we're, I guess one thing I'll say is, I was in 2017 cycle, we had a lot of these quote unquote ETH killers coming up, right? We had like, it's funny to think back, because at the time these were all a big deal. You had EOS, you
Mhm.
had Neo, you
Yeah.
had Icon, you
True.
had Quotum or something. There's like a ton. There's so many different ones, right?
Mhm.
People were talking. They all had their turn of being in the spotlight, and and in the end, none of them amounted to really that much of anything. Like if you look at all the, you can
Exactly.
even go back to 2017, and you can look at the historical rankings of CoinMarketCap. It's actually not a bad activity to do every once in a while, to kind of remind yourself like that stuff can be in the spotlight one minute and be gone the next, and what really sticks around throughout the cycles. So last
Totally.
cycle, we had a half a dozen or a dozen like quote unquote ETH killers, and all of those coins are, all of them are lower ranked today than they were during that cycle. So like we had a whole, what I'm trying to say is we had like a class of smart contracts that were competing with ETH that came in that cycle, and they all died off, and they all lost compared to ETH. Now we have
Exactly.
the next wave, or the second class, or the newer class of ETH killers coming, and they might be of better quality, and there might be more substance behind them, but we could
Mhm.
actually see the same thing happen. We could literally see this cycle kind of a rise up, like we saw with these other platforms, and then the
Mhm.
fall, as as ETH launches its stuff, and it just doesn't. So it's really hard to say, but I would say like history so far has showed that there's always been a lot of competitors to ETH, but none have really actually stood the test of time as of yet. I do think this crop of competitors is a lot of higher caliber, but we could see the same result. So one thing I'll say with Solana is, there was a recent $900 million raise with FTX,
Mhm.
and that project is very connected to Solana, and so
True.
it's money. Money does not guarantee success by any means. We saw that with EOS. Like EOS
Yes.
raised $5 billion, largest ICO of all time, by far. They did a year-long ICO, and I mean that project, it amounted to really nothing. I do think the Solana is actually trying to do stuff, whereas EOS, I have no idea what that project was trying to do. Like they put all their money really into Bitcoin. Like they just
Mhm.
basically pocketed their ICO money, just bought Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say the $900 million raise as of recent, like that headline, when I saw that, that kind of gave me two things to think about. One is, okay, you have FTX raise that kind of money. They're going to be a
Mhm.
major player in the space for sure. They raised that $18 billion, which is a good amount for a raise, and they at $18 billion valuation. They To me, that headline was meaningful, because it made me feel like, okay, there's a lot of regulation headlines coming out right now, but then you have a company that just raised $900 million.
Yeah.
So that means $900 million worth of capital just came into crypto. So if crypto is going to disappear, if crypto is going to be regulated to oblivion, and it was just going to become nothing, like you just got to look at the capital flows from the
Mhm.
traditional financial system. And some of these huge players, and these huge hedge funds, and these large angel investors or whatever, like they're putting tons of money into the space ongoing still,
Yeah.
regardless of what the price is doing, regardless of what the headlines are, regardless of what the regulation headlines are saying. So to me, that's confidence that the amount of money being invested in this space, like it's definitely not going anywhere from my
Mhm.
perspective. And but also that made me think, okay, Solana's kind of connected to that project somewhat with the founder and things. So it could be something in the future with Solana up and coming.
For
But
sure.
yeah, we don't.
And
It doesn't guarantee anything. It really doesn't.
no, no, and I mean, the difference between Solana, in my perspective, and EOS is that things are actually being built on Solana, which is a big difference also in crypto in general today compared to 2017. But I tend to, maybe that's also because of my background, but I really tend to focus on where are people building things. Because if people don't build with anything, they might have raised an ungodly amount of money. But if people are not interested in adopting it, then there's no point, right? EOS is probably the best example of that.
Yeah, it's you definitely want to like you said, follow the adoption, follow the growth of
Mm,
actual, like where are the developers going, where's the mind share going, and where are things actually being built, like you said. So yeah, time will tell if any of these other projects can compete. We could see a world in which we have multiple winners, where you have like a Polkadot, being the interoperable kind of winner
mm,
of that category, and
mm,
potentially you have like a Solana being like used for certain aspects of like say they have a lot higher throughput. They could have a small niche of certain projects that launch on Solana that need like extremely high throughput, but you still could have like the majority being built on Ethereum for the security and for the network effects of that ecosystem. So we could see a world in where you have, Polkadot, Solana, and ETH, multiple winners, and kind of all having their own part of the pie. But yeah, I only hold ETH. I don't hold Polkadot or Solana myself,
mm,
but I definitely am watching those two, and kind of
for sure.
they're on my watch list, you could say, as far as yeah, looking at those ones. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, the big joker here is that this market is moving so fast and it's expanding so fast. So while Ethereum right now is sort of pioneering the DeFi and yeah, DeFi revolution and all these different things with and NFTs and all that. I mean, Solana might be carving out a niche within that or a whole different market that we don't know about today, which they will specialize in. I know, for example, Polygon or Matic, which has built on top of Ethereum, but they are very sort of big on the NFT space. And there could be a niche for that for Solana, for Polkadot, or whatever, right? So it's super hard to predict, especially with the market moving so fast. I mean, this is all about infrastructure. You know, more and more applications are being built as decentralized applications or dApps, and it's very unpredictable which new dApp is going to be a killer app, right? It might be a social network, it might be a Uber kind of marketplace. It's just so difficult to say. And depending on which one comes first, there might be a protocol that is not Ethereum, which is perfectly suited for that. So that's, I guess, the big joker that nobody knows about, and that's kind of the fun about this, if you ask me.